Welcome to the Style and Vibes podcast with me, Michaela. I'll be giving you the inside scoop on music, fashion, culture, and more from Caribbean celebrities and tastemakers across the globe, pushing our culture with authenticity and, of course, style and vibes. Vlog. It's Michaela of the Style and Vibes podcast. It's been such a long time. I'm dusting off some cobwebs, trying a new platform, and having some fun at the same time. You got to laugh at yourself, right? So I am back. It's an exciting time for me. I was just telling my guest hosts, I'm gonna turn it over soon, how nervous I am because I think I'm always a little nervous before I hit record, but this feels extra nervous because it feels like it's my first time all over again. But I know it's not. And once you get me start chatting, this is what you get. So in order, I wouldn't call it a comeback. I did take some time off to kind of birth life. Had a new baby. She's almost a year. So I took that time to just spend with her really and spending the time with the family, getting myself together. And now I'm just really excited to kind of restart the Style and Vibes podcast in a way that is just bringing me just as much joy and excitement. So in order to kick things off, I kind of wanted to do things a little differently. And as I was talking to the producer, Carrie Ann Reed Brown, of Breadfruit Media, we were talking about how we wanted to come back. And I thought, of taking some time off, some of my thoughts processes have changed. It might be a good way to kind of reflect that. And Chris is a bona fide friend from years upon years. I know Chris. Chris is the editor and publisher of WhereItzAt Magazine. So I know Chris going back to my magazine days. So that's how long we've known each other and have kept in touch over the years. And he, myself, and Carrie have done a few podcasts on her platform. And we've had so much fun. It's like a little trio of us. I said, Chris, come host and ask me a few questions just to kind of get me started and get my mind going and bring me back to the audience. And I could think of no better person besides Carrie to kind of hand over the hosting duties to for the Style and Vibes family. So you guys welcome Chris.
I'm hearing applause. Thank you. Listen, while you were talking, all I was thinking is when you said, I was like, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I'm like
see, this is why we
that was in my that was in my head. And then and then of course, I want to make sure it's totally clear. WhereItzAt Magazine, I'm associate publisher.
Associate publisher.
Daddy, my father are the publisher. My father,
the big man.
FADDA, father are the publisher. Father are the publisher. But yeah, no, it's I really listen. I'm so happy to be here and to be doing this with you because, like you said, a long time where I come from. Long time. And Style and Vibes, in terms of what you've been doing, what you created, is just such a dope platform. It's like I'm so happy that I have the opportunity to be here with you as you come out of your rest and reset mode and you're back.
Yes, right? I like that rest and reset.
Although yeah,
I don't know how much rest I really got, but
well, you got a little something, a little bit. Yes. Well, as your shirt say, you always I work. Say we on a jerk. Oh man. So I mean, having you here and talking like Style and Vibes, like one of the things, and I'm sure people know this, but I think it would be good, especially for new people just tuning in, like what made you birth Style and Vibes and why? Why is it called Style and Vibes? I'm really curious.
A lot of people always ask me about the name. I'm always excited. The name probably stuck out first, it was the first thing that I had ever thought of when
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a platform, because it was really indicative of fluid culture, style
Right.
and vibes,
Vibes.
like,
Yes.
and for whatever reason, it this is before the good vibes only movement kind of took over. And we always talk about vibes, and it even extends beyond Vibes Cartel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we've always used that word and to just kind of evoke a certain, like, my spirit take you, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
vibes, yeah,
Yeah. Have
yeah,
a vibes.
Bula
Yeah.
vibes, yeah, take some vibes. And like, those are that word is just something that we've always used from a cultural standpoint. And just style is like, something that we evoke, not just through the way that we dress, but how we bossy and how we chat and how we dance and how we approach people. Like, style and vibes to me just went, it was a way to identify Caribbean culture without using the word Caribbean, or
Mm-hmm.
having the traditional rasta colors, and there's nothing wrong with those. But I just wanted it to be almost like a standalone, if you will.
Right.
But when you hear it, but
Mm-hmm.
also it has the ability to kind of permeate through other um, um, cultures,
Right.
and really, so that people, like, to really bring people into our culture.
Right.
So the name itself is probably one of the first things that really came to mind. And I've talked about going from platform to platform, and that has really always been, it's been the same, it's always been style and vibes. And I think that the name itself just kind of will stand the test of time from a cultural standpoint. So that's why I chose style and vibes to begin with.
Sounds good. Now, when was it created? When did you create Style and Vibes?
This is a long time ago. So I actually created it was a blog. So as you know, I was in a magazine, just
Mm-hmm.
writing in that world for a little bit, actually, fresh out of college. Actually, towards the end of college, I had a radio program, and then I wanted to get into written journalism. So I started freelance writing. I was doing radio at my college at the time, and so this was really supposed to be a platform to kind of like share a lot of the things that I had worked on. So articles, behind the scenes, just sharing my journey. And then it kind of just took a life of its own. There aren't a whole lot of Caribbean media platforms, and at the time there weren't a lot of web based platforms either. There were still some print. You guys do print,
Mm-hmm.
so that whole I couldn't do print, and I was contributing, so I didn't want to kind of have the worlds commingle at the time.
Right.
So I figured that I could share what I was working on, write some of my own pieces, and still kind of keep the ball rolling. But as it kind of evolved, as I started to interview more people, it became more than just music and fashion. It really became about culture and how we relate to culture, and how culture permeates through, and what our cultural equity is. I think so. Preservation of cultural equity has become really, really important, especially in most recent years. We've seen a lot happen from a cultural standpoint, being based in the States. We see the inspiration, but we don't always see the payment of those
Mm-hmm.
inspirations. So I think being able to be a source of established cultural relevance. I wrote it down today, and I do have another job. So I work in digital marketing. So I really understand how brands use culture to kind of elevate and permeate their messages through cultural relevancy.
Right.
I think the same is very true for Caribbean culture across the globe. You see it on the runway, you see it in fashion magazines, you see it, when music comes on in football stadiums or it plays in a party. You can see how much is surrounded from a cultural standpoint and the impact from a global perspective. So I think that that's really how the brand has really transitioned.
Mm-hmm.
I've met a lot of people along the way. And Carrie really said to me, you need to do a podcast. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do a podcast. It's a lot of work, yada, yada, yada. And she's just like, all right, if you do the podcast, I'll edit it. I said, you know what? Me's a prideful woman, but me I gotta take the help. You see?
Right.
I gotta take the help. I see where it go because I was having these conversations with people, and one thing about, and I'm sure Chris, transcribing. Now it's a little easier, but
Mm-hmm.
back
Mm-hmm.
then you had to listen, write every word.
It's a
Like
lot. It's a lot.
transcribing
It's
an
a lot.
interview
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of work, and especially
And
when
it's still a lot of work, especially when you're interviewing people who are, they speak patois. So it's like even the transcribing tool is not going to capture every little sort of expression of the language. So yeah, it's work.
yeah.
Yeah.
Those nuances get muddled a lot because
Mm-hmm.
even
Mm-hmm.
when I use them to do transcriptions for the podcast, I still have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And that's
Absolutely.
really the AI development around there's no one speaking patois,
Exactly.
infusing that language into these tools and technologies. That's a whole nother that's a whole
So
nother
so listen, I'm
story.
gonna get you. I want to get you to give me so from print. I'm not print, but from the blog, style and vibes to now the podcast. Would you say this was like started in what 2005 or was it later?
2007.
2007. Okay.
2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long
That's
time,
some
I know,
years. Yeah, that's a
I
long
know.
time. Yeah.
And then this my
So you're talking
maternity
like
leave was the
about
longest
15
break that I've
years.
ever taken.
Yeah,
Yeah,
15 years. 15 years.
yeah,
You've been, yeah, yeah. Yeah, man.
yeah. So,
Large
so
episode.
I think that's why it took me a little while to get back, is because I had never taken a break from the platform at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it wasn't that I was running out of ideas. I just needed to take a break, like,
Right,
quite
right, right.
literally. So I think having a baby, being pregnant, and being in a space where I kind of had to sit, and Carrie really inspired me to go sit down. Um, so that really put me in a space where I could, just look at things in a different way, um, be re-inspired again. I think there's value in taking a break, and I probably should have done it sooner,
Yeah,
if that
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. So when you think, okay, so obviously you took a break, you're coming back, you're back, right? But when you think about the from 2007 to now, making the transition from, a blog, an online magazine to a podcast, what was that transition like for you? And which would you say you love more?
Surprisingly, but not surprisingly, I love the podcast more.
Okay.
And the reason why is, as a writer, you're also listening and thinking about the story, if
Mm-hmm.
you will. When I'm engaging in conversation, the same research happens, the same sort of approach to what I want to ask people happens, but there's something else where you can have extended conversations around specific things, and there is no real limit. It's hard to condense a 15 to 20 minute, believe it or not, it's hard to condense a 15 to 20-minute conversation. And that's on the low end. If you're having a really good conversation, it can go like 45
Mm-hmm.
minutes, with any individual, and condense it to 1,000 words or
Mm-hmm.
less, right? And even then, you're only getting the angle of the story, or you're getting specific pieces of a story. The podcast really allows people the depth and the breadth to go into a particular topic, to really understand individuals, their perspectives. And I think for artists, it's even more interesting because you get to see a side of them that you don't normally see in other media publications. If they're doing radio stops, they're there because they're promoting something, and they're even limited to like 15, 20 minutes, add in two or three songs promoting whatever it is that they're promoting, and the show is done. Whereas I can ask different questions, I can ask more about their perspectives. Sometimes, like if you listen to like morning radio, or like if you have a highly interview type show,
Hmm.
where that is the expectation. But I think the reason why podcasts have taken off the way that they have is because of the in-depth conversations and opinions that you can hear from individuals that you've either one never heard of, or two, you want to know more than what you hear in those smaller portions of their life. And I think it gives artists a real opportunity, and all creatives of Caribbean descent,
Right.
opportunity to speak on their particular subject matter in a way that they probably have never been able to before.
Right, right. Now, just making the transition from doing your online magazine to the podcast, was that an easy transition for you, considering the fact that you said you love podcasting more?
It wasn't. I was really tied to traditional media. I still love a magazine. I still love a physical book. I still love reading articles. I still really enjoy the reading aspect of our industry.
Hmm.
So it was really hard for me to let go, and really and truly, I couldn't, because I'm a one woman show. I've tried to get writers, contributors, and it's not consistent in a way that allowed me to kind of say, okay, you guys write and let me do this.
Right,
And it really came to a turning point where I had to decide to spend the time, crafting articles, or spend the time doing this. So I really stripped away all things of writing and continuing to write, to really double down and focus on the podcast. Once I saw how how focused I was on the podcast, in terms of, and how focused I could be. So but initially it took a while, because I mean Carrie had asked me before we launched, at least a year before then. And then she kept seeding it, because she saw the vision. And I'm like, I don't know. But at the same time, I said, let me try it, because I do have these long conversations with people, and we can just kind of chop it up, and I can do both. But
right,
then, like, again, with the writing and the transcriptions and trying to condense it, I ended up spending way more time writing a piece that, um, from an SEO standpoint, would get long-term traction, but
right,
just took so much time and so much energy to write, and then to turn around and market it as well. I think with a podcast, you can do the research. The process is a different process in batches. So I can do all the research, record, and be super engaged. And then I hand off the editing to Carrie, and then I just do the marketing piece.
right,
Whereas if I'm sourcing, and I still source the host, the guests, or the topics, but then I'm crafting the story. I'm being my own writer, I'm being my own editor, I'm being my own copy editor, I'm being my graphic designer. I'm also distributing it and I'm also creating content for social to promote it. I'm setting up campaigns to promote it. And
wow,
some of that same work ethic goes into a podcast, but in the world of digital and keeping up with the pace, you need to do like 2 or 3 articles a day in order to really maintain and grow at a level of what you're kind of referring to it as like a digital magazine. Like, that's what you
hmm,
have to do. You have to write, and some of the highly trafficked ones are writing 20 articles a day, and that's with a fully staffed team, and they
hmm,
have to churn that content out on a consistent basis. Um so the transition was tough in my mind, because I'm like, this is like, it's like someone who likes reading the newspaper, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I'm just gonna read the newspaper, but you can get your news online. They're like, no, I want to read the news.
Mm-hmm.
So I was that for a while, and I said, let me give this a try. I followed all of the instructions, and here we are. And I've never looked back, and I don't think I would. I think I can do writing and contribute in writing at my own pace, when I'm ready to do that.
Okay, all right. I hear you. I hear you. I mean, it definitely is. And for folks that don't know, you mentioned SEO. That's search engine optimization, right? So that's the way that we can make sure that when we're posting stuff, that people are able to see it with us assigning all the right tags and things of that nature. Um,
And believe me, the stuff that I've written is still gonna stay on the website, because
mhm.
like, anytime Spice does something crazy, her article goes crazy. Anytime you hear Lady saw it, like, people search Lady
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
Shen's,
yeah.
Rihanna's coming back. I saw that kind of pop a little bit. So
Right.
you don't want to get rid of it, and it really also attributes to the building of SEO for the brand style and vibes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's still there. It just, we're just existing in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when you think about prepping, how do you prepare for a podcast, for your podcast episodes? Like, what does that look like?
I think just research is really important. If it really depends. So if it's stemming from like an idea of a just a question that I would think of, I like write it down and then kind of research it. Or I encounter people either online or in person who talk about something, and I'm like, hey, would you be interested in exploring that on the podcast, and how can we collaborate in that manner? So I think the preparation is really, it's not when you get on camera, the prep beforehand really goes a long way. It's not going to go exactly as planned, and I'm okay with it, but it allows you to be prepared for, in case, like, a person isn't very talkative and you have the right questions, or you can kind of pull from things that you read or saw to kind of, yeah, try draw them out, like, we
Right,
say
right,
draw, like, in a good way. Me not try, draw out people in a bad way, but you want to bring something out of someone, that's different, that kind of stands out, that you haven't seen before. I think that's my challenge to myself when I'm like, I want this person to, especially if it's like a celebrity, I want to ask them something that they've never been asked before.
hmm
And if a person says that, then to me, I know that I've done a good job,
right,
because I'm not asking them the same things that they keep asking. Like, if they have to think about it, I've done my job.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I love that experience too. It's like I remember doing an interview with Etana, and there was a particular question I asked her that she paused, and it was the greatest thing ever because I'm like, yes, I know I'm gonna ask her. So when nobody has asked her before, and doing these interviews, that brings some joy because it's like it makes you stand out from the rest.
It also
Uh,
makes you memorable. Like, a lot of artists aren't comfortable speaking with the media. So
hmm
when you can ask them something that I either have to kind of stop in their tracks, or is a little bit memorable. I have Etana was my first guest, and she was talking about fashion trends that she wished she had never done, and that was the first time
hmm
somebody had really asked her about that too. So I think it keeps it fun and interesting for them. It kind of loosens them up a bit. So it's a good tactic. I see Chris with the panic, man.
they find the thing. What would you say was the hardest episode to record?
I think the hardest episode, and I have to say, the reason why it was so hard is because I had to call Carrie to help me with. I'm like, I can't hear this person.
Oh man, the
So it
sound. So
was
what? The sound was
it
low,
was
or
it was uh Born Jamericans, Shine, something.
Edley Shine. Edley
Edley
Shine?
Shine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Edley Shine was I was doing, and that was actually a lot of fun to record once. The conversation was engaging, but I was just like, oh my gosh, she's gonna hang up because it took like 30 minutes to get the whole Zoom situation together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nerve-wracking because I had to have Carrie, and it was just like, and the whole time it was me.
It was
It
you.
was me. It was my settings because I did something or I did something new or
Oh
whatever,
man.
but I couldn't hear him for whatever reason. But he was so patient. And it ended up being a really great interview. And he stayed until the very end in
Wow.
the studio to really answer every single question. And he was in his home studio and it was like on a Friday. So it's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so the man have things to do. And me I hold him
Yeah,
up
yeah, yeah,
about
eat
two
up him
hours.
time.
Yeah. So, but it happens. But I think that by far that was probably my most challenging one. I've
Yeah,
had to
yeah.
wait long for some, but
But I mean, those things are like it's technology, right? So things can go wrong. I mean, I had a similar situation. It's like I keep bringing up Etana, but I had very similar situation with her where I recorded something. We thought we recorded it, and it was phenomenal. Like I was so hype off of it, and when I played it back, we couldn't hear nothing.
nothing.
Like there was no, I couldn't hear her on the record, so I had to call her back. And thank God she had the time and she was patient and she still had her makeup on and everything because this was a video thing that we were doing. And
Yeah,
it was so gracious that she was like, "Absolutely, let's do it again." And the second one was still good, it was,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the first one, the energy, you know, you
The
get the
energy,
first
the
line
vibes
energy,
kind of different
yeah,
still.
yeah, but it was still dope. It was still dope. Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
It happens. Technology gets the best of us sometimes. So
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. When you think of over the years all the different guests you've had, which one surprised you the most and
I
why?
think surprise was Walshy Fire. I think it was an
Okay.
yeah, it
I
was
didn't even know you did an interview with Walshy Fire. I mean, if I go back and listen to that one
hey,
there.
and if you check it was a good interview. And the reason why was it just felt like I was talking to somebody that I had met, or like I kind of knew him because we kind of came up through the same era. We grew up because
Right.
I'm not major laser status or anything, but we grew up around understanding and knowing some of the same people. And um, I think he just had a lot of really interesting things to say. I think we were talking about Ma'at. We went from
Hmm.
90s dancehall to Ma'at. Like it was
Wow.
just the
Wow.
most in depth I think I've ever, to even to this day, I don't think I've read or seen anything with him talking in the way he did in that interview. And it was very conversational, to be completely honest. So I think he was the most surprising, very down to earth,
Hmm.
um in a good way. And it was just interesting because you think he's one third of Major Lazer, and he was just like have on a backpack, sat down, chill, had a drink, and then we just had a conversation. And it
Oh,
was,
so this was an in-person situation.
yeah, so I actually learned how to record audio podcasts through Carrie, my producer. Big up my producer. Um, so a lot of celebrities are on the go. So a lot
Right.
of, and this was before COVID, where all of the setups were a little bit
Hmm.
easier and everybody had cameras. So a lot of times people are coming to New York, and that's the same way I did Etana, to be completely honest. I recorded everything on my phone through an app. I had two microphones. No, I had one microphone, and I was like going like, those
Right.
tiny microphones that
Right. Yeah,
people,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
Like
what
you
I
gotta
was
hold with
doing to go
your
back and
between
forth with
your
the
thumb and your
side.
index
Yeah.
finger like
It
this.
was
Yeah.
yes, it was one track.
Right.
And it was super nerve-wracking, but you just work with what you have. And I think
Right.
that's the beauty of podcasting too, is you can literally start from your phone, because that's where I started. And yeah, and then I upgraded to another microphone that Carrie had recommended, and it allowed me to be mobile and kind of tune out some of the sounds. Because even when I did the interview with Kay Keneal, we were supposed to be in a location, it was way too loud, and we just moved it to the pier outside, and we were able to have the conversation, take some pictures. It was really it's really phenomenal how much you can do even in person. And so Carrie is able to kind of, so I can take both experiences. So in person is just audio,
Mm-hmm.
but you can, I know people who do like a travel setup, or they have a team to kind of record on the fly, or you have a studio or whatever. But I just don't, I didn't want to invest in that. And I was just like, I just want to be focused on, I don't want to be focused on everything else. I want to be focused on the conversation. So the
Right.
audio only in person. And trust me, I would still use that setup today because it just works and you can edit everything.
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
so
You teaching me some stuff now. I'm like,
listen, I
I
will,
listen.
I will get the link from Kerry, so you make sure you get our affiliate link,
Yeah,
so,
man, yeah,
so we
man, yeah,
can get
man.
little change on the ends, so we have to do it.
Definitely. I mean, I'm not asking you to name drop, but I'm kind of asking you to name drop. Like you mentioned Walshy Fire, Etana, Kate Keneal. Like, who are some of the well-known, artists, celebrities, prominent people that you've had on the podcast? And just a few. You don't have to
I
name
think
all
those are the
500.
few. I did Conscience.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? I'm trying to remember. I
You
don't
mentioned
think.
Edley Shine from
Oh,
Born Americans.
Savannah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Savannah. Oh, I love
Savannah,
Savannah. Oh, I love Savannah.
Tessellated.
Savannah, if you're listening, I love you. I love you. So, no, no, no. I'm a
Him
fan.
love you like mango, Savannah.
I love it like mango. I love it like crisp biscuits.
Kabaka Pyramid. I've done.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, who else? Who else?
I heard through the grapevine you also interviewed Pressure Boss Pipe.
Pressure, yes. I almost forget. Jesus, you're right. Remind me about my catalog. We're not new to this. Yeah,
Oh
but
man.
I mean, to be honest, I have so many great conversations, not just with the celebrities. I think centering it, at first I thought that I would center it around celebrities, but I think sprinkling in the celebrities here and there is really good because it also allows for us to have different conversations.
Right.
So like even the conversation, like I did not expect my conversation with Andrew Clarke of Braata, who we all know in New
Hmm.
York is like the premier, um I would say, singing and dancing, performing arts, Caribbean culture company. But that interview was so good, talking about Caribbean holidays and the spirit of what we do and what he does. And that really did very, very well because I think people like to think and go back to the nostalgia of traditions that we either miss or don't get to or just kind of reminisce about a
Right.
bit. And even uh the fire festival, everybody like the reaction podcasts also do really well, but you have to release it within a particular time frame, so I don't do them too often. So I did that one around like when Michael B. Jordan did the rum, and then around Fire Festival. But
Mm.
for the Fire Festival, it took place in Bahamas, but the documentary really never centered around the Bahamian people, so I got
Wait,
someone from the
it took
Bahamas.
place. The fire festival
Yeah,
took
yeah.
place. It
Well,
really.
it didn't.
I was just like,
um
it took place. It was supposed to
Well,
take place.
yes, it was supposed to take place, but being able to cover it from that perspective and
Absolutely. Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
like getting that angle of the story was something that wasn't going to be covered in the mainstream media. And then some of the, social media topics, like, the guy who called himself White Chocolate, and, the
Oh.
colonization of dancing and all of
Hmm.
something there. Um, and just really talking about like Caribbean film with Rachel, and those are all Stush and Bush. Oh my gosh, that was such an
Yeah, yeah,
engaging
yeah.
episode around being of the LGBTQ plus community and being
Hmm.
Caribbean. And I think that that identity and that cross section has really only been talked about in specific circles. So I think we still have a ways to go. So I really like that about the podcast is it mixes the celebrity with the cultural elements, which makes it fun and engaging.
So I mean, you're back, right? You're back. Like Style and Vibes is here. You're
Yeah.
back. No more hiatus. You're there. You're there on the scene. What can people look or expect from you in the coming, as the coming episodes? And are you planning to do anything differently?
Yeah, Carrie and I really talked about wanting to elevate, if you will, not change, but kind of how we're going to go to the next level. I and I is a person of a certain age, so I'm not always going to be
You're
into
young.
me young. Yes, me needs them young, but me hear them, it kind of, I would say, I'm the young cousin or auntie that, still I'm
Right,
with the vibes, but just bringing that perspective, I think as I've gotten older, my taste has changed.
right.
Not to say that I don't think that the talent level of what is from Caribbean music is kind of going through that I'm not into, but I'm not into that scene as much, if you will. So I'm not partying every weekend like I used to be. Or, I think that the content is really serving both audiences. The younger audiences who kind of want to experience something around culture. So I think at the epicenter really is culture. Um and really just trying like some new segments. I think just adding some freshness to how we break up the podcast and adding, some new thoughts and ideas, whether it be from the audience or from people that I'm connecting with. I'd love to try the idea of um, have more guest hosting so I can really talk about topics and not necessarily have it centered. So Chris, um yeah, this is your official invite because I think I've had so many great Caribbean people who have contributed to conversations over the years. There's you, there's Melissa Noel, there's Vanessa J Media. Like all of these people have Chelsea, you know what I mean? Like we've had conversations that allow for extended conversations or topics to kind of come back and share in those opinions. So as you know, like I'm a solo host, so having a guest co-host makes it that much more fun to
Yeah,
really engage with not only the topic but another person. And I think that that should be a lot of fun as well, and it doesn't take away from the essence of style and vibes, if you will.
got it. Yeah. So what I'm hearing, and this is how I'm going to interpret it, is that Style and Vibes are gonna come with some new style and a whole heap of vibes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
mean, yeah, me
yeah.
like it. Me like it. I use it. I use a style and I use a vibes.
Yo, Style and Vibes can't done. Listen, I
Yeah,
mean,
done. It yeah
just
done.
I'm so happy that I got the chance to sit with you and have this conversation because I've been looking forward, and I know a lot of other people, having listened to so many episodes before, have been in anticipation of when you're coming back and what you're coming back with. And I can only say, folks that are listening, that listen, yo, the thing I got turn up. So translation, it's gonna be hot. It's gonna be fire. You're gonna love it. I guarantee it. I'm telling you, you've got to stay tuned to Style and Vibes because they got lots of style, lots of vibes. It's great energy all around. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
You're not lying. You're not lying. I mean, and that's a good thing about taking your time with topics is you can kind of pre-record and we've already done another one as well, so you guys can kind of really look out for that. But I'm excited. I'm so grateful to have the audience come along this journey with me, and
Yep.
as the brand grows and the podcast gets bigger, I'm really humbled by all of the support. I haven't done a new podcast in almost a year, and people are still downloading old episodes, like legit.
That's a good
So
thing.
I
Yeah.
think that
I mean,
that
it
is
says
amazing.
that you've created evergreen content that, people just they want to hear. It's not out of date, That's a great thing.
Yeah, so I don't know who's sharing and who's out there listening, but don't be afraid to engage with me. I think that's what we lack as a community. Sometimes you feel like, is anybody out there? Because it's so one way, communications, and I hear from very few people, but I do not the downloads are there, so I know people are interested. But I think what we lack as a community is that positive engagement, where we're okay with the when something is bad, to kind of just harp on it and comment, and that's the life of social media. But I think it's also important to give positive feedback, and feedback about, like, you guys really drive a lot of the content. So if there's something that the audience wants me to explore or talk about, I'm an open book in terms of ideas. So make sure you guys either tag me on social or send me a quick email. But I am humbled by this entire experience. Thank you so much, Chris, for even
I'm
um
just saying, I got your
taking out
back.
the time. I'm in love. Oh yeah, pick me up.
Yeah, man, you're loads, you're loads. Listen, so folks are listening. Where can they find Style and Vibes?
Styleandvibes.com, Style and Vibes everywhere, on social, spelled all the way out. And yeah, just keep up to date on the website and on social media, and you'll know when things are going. Things are going.
Right. Yeah. Just to get those fresh updates, to know when new episodes are getting ready to drop. And like I said, listen, if you didn't know before, I want to make it very clear. Style and Vibes is about style and vibes. I mean, you got to get it. You got to understand it, like style and vibe. Like if you're from Jamaica,
I'm
you
gonna put
know.
Chris on
If,
repeat.
if you're from Jamaica, you know. But if you're not from Jamaica, I just want to reiterate so you understand.
Mhm.
Style and vibes, two separate words, but you put them together as style and vibes.
I
And
one piece
vibes
of things.
can't done one piece of
What
thing.
you
So
mean?
stay tuned. Lots more to come. You heard from Michaela, the host, the creator, and of course, Carrie Ann Reed Brown, Breadfruit Media, big time producer. She run the thing, make the thing
How
sell out.
she
Yeah,
run it,
man.
man?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Can't done. Yo, I love the style. I love the vibes. Things can't done.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Style and Vibes podcast. If you like what you hear, and I know you do, share it with your friends and family. If you want more, make sure you visit styleandvibes.com and follow us on our social channels, Twitter and Instagram at Style and Vibes. Until next time, Leah Tommy Peeps.